The idea behind the let them theory by Mel Robbins is simple and straightforward. But once applied and practiced consistently, it starts to change how stress, responsibility, and control are handled in everyday life. At its core, it offers a different way of dealing with friction, especially with people. Instead of spending energy trying to change other people's reactions, choices, or behavior, the focus shifts back to what can actually be controlled: your emotions, your reactions, and your behavior. This isn't about detachment, and it isn't about indifference. It's about placing responsibility where it belongs and noticing how much lighter things feel once that boundary is clearly set and respected. A lot of daily stress doesn't come from major problems. It comes from small, repeated moments where that boundary gets crossed without being noticed. Here are 10 practical ideas that emerge from the let them theory. Time and energy as limited resources. Time and energy can feel abundant, but anyone who's lived intensely for a while knows they're not. Most of what drains them doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly and quietly. A few minutes replaying a conversation, a lingering irritation over something that can't be changed, a mental loop that doesn't really lead anywhere. On their own, these moments don't feel harmful, but over time, they add up. That's where the idea of let them starts to matter. Energy spent reacting to other people's behavior is energy taken away from your personal goals, meaningful work, or even your peace of mind. When this happens repeatedly, progress slows down, not dramatically, but consistently. Letting others live their lives is not disengagement. It's respect. Respect for yourself and for others. It's a conscious choice about where attention is actually useful. Let them and let me. One of the clearest ideas in the book is the distinction between two choices. Let them means releasing the urge to manage or correct others. Let me means taking responsibility for what happens next. Your response, your decision, your direction. This distinction shifts attention away from outcomes that can't be controlled and toward actions that can be. It doesn't deny reality or pretend situations are easy. It simply acknowledges that not everything is within your control or deserves emotional investment. When responsibility is misplaced, stress builds. When responsibility is placed correctly, things start to feel more manageable. Obsession and over-attention. A lot of time is lost not through action, but through over-attention. Thinking about what someone meant. Wondering how something was received. Replaying conversations long after they've ended. Most of the time, it leads nowhere. This kind of fixation narrows focus. It pulls attention away from what actually matters and from what is within your control. Letting others live their lives creates space. And that space makes it easier to focus on your personal goals and direction. Let them is rarely a one-time decision. Let them sounds simple, but it doesn't come naturally. The same situations tend to come up again and again. The same triggers appear. Each time the pull to step in, correct, or control feels real. What matters isn't getting it right every time. What matters is repetition, being intentional about letting them. Over time, the response changes, not because situations disappear, but because the habit of over-involvement weakens and the habit of letting go strengthens. That shift is gradual, but when practiced consistently, its impact on how you live your life can be profound. Why control feels so tempting. Control often shows up as a response to fear. Fear of disappointment, fear of rejection, fear of uncertainty. Managing outcomes can feel protective. It creates the impression that negative experiences can be avoided. But that sense of safety doesn't last. And more often than not, control creates friction with others. Interestingly, the more control you release over how others live their lives, the more control you regain over how you live your own. Emotional distance and clear thinking. In the let them theory, emotional distance isn't framed as coldness, it's framed as space. That space allows situations to be seen more objectively, without reacting purely from emotion. Instead of responding immediately, there's room to pause and understand what's actually happening. From that space, decisions tend to be clearer and more aligned with your long-term priorities. Emotion doesn't disappear. It simply stops driving every response. Responsibility in adult life. A recurring idea in the book is that adulthood comes with ownership. Well-being, boundaries, relationships, and growth can't be outsourced. Let Them returns responsibility to others for their own choices. It recognizes that adults are responsible for how they live, how they respond, and how they deal with the consequences of their decisions. In doing so, it becomes possible to fully take responsibility for your own life, without carrying the weight of other people's actions or decisions. Opinions and personal agency. Opinions are unavoidable. Someone will always have one. The problem isn't the existence of opinions. The problem is what happens when those opinions are given too much power over your life. Clear thinking starts to fade. Hesitation sets in. Progress slows. Progress doesn't depend on the approval of others. It depends on alignment between your values and your decisions, and between your intention and your actions. Disappointment and choice. Disappointment is part of choosing anything that matters. Every decision closes certain doors and affects other people. Trying to overthink every choice in order to avoid disappointing others often leads to hesitation, second-guessing, or decisions that don't sit well over time. A steadier approach is to make decisions that can be respected later, decisions that still feel right, even if they're uncomfortable in the moment. This doesn't remove difficulty, but it does reduce regret. Make decisions you can be proud of, even if it means disappointing others. Emotional responsibility and boundaries. One of the most practical parts of the Let Them theory is recognizing where emotional responsibility ends. Adults are responsible for processing their own emotions, frustration, disappointment, uncertainty included. Taking that responsibility on for others often leads to imbalance and resentment. Stepping back doesn't mean caring less. It means allowing people to face their own emotional experiences while keeping your personal stability intact. The Let Them theory isn't about disengaging from life or relationships. It's about reducing unnecessary friction by being clear about responsibility, both your own and that of others. When you allow other people to live according to their own choices, your attention naturally returns to what you can control. Over time, that shift leads to clearer thinking, better use of energy, and a more deliberate way of moving toward meaningful goals. The value of this approach isn't in changing other people. It's in consistently choosing where your time and energy are placed. If this video helped you, consider subscribing. You can also like, comment, or share. See you in the next video.